Hey everybody, hey, let's watch an intro. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to Chiller Night Live, where from 8 p.m. Eastern Time until 9 o'clock we'll talk about all things horror, science fiction, paranormal. You pick the topic and we'll make a show out of it. Stephanie says, hey y'all. Hey Stephanie, thanks for joining us. Pat Van says, them. You're darn right, them. All right, and Dee says, "Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dee. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have you back this week. I know last week was a bit. You were down with your power and everything with the storms and all that. So good to see you. Yes, this week we were. I think it was John who decided that wanted to talk about giant insect horror movies. So that's what we're going to do. We'll talk about giant insect horror movies. Didn't have a lot of time to prep for this, but I did, of course, get a pretty good list of 10 classic giant bug movies. So we'll be going over that here pretty soon. But in the meantime, let's see, Jason says, Ghoul. Oh, Bonehead says, hey, hello, Chiller Night crew. Brian and Miss Ava, let's talk bugs. Let's talk bugs. Let's do just that. Jason says, Ghoul evening, my fellow ghouls, and to our ghoulish leader, Brian. Well, thank you, Jason. Ghoul evening to you and to everyone. SBC says, hello, everyone. Hey, SBC, thanks for joining us. Yeah, tonight we'll be talking about giant insect movies and horror movies. So, we'll do that here in just a few minutes. Jason says, is Mothra a bug movie? Well, if you want it to be, you know what? We'll throw it in there if you want it to be. It is a giant bug. I don't know if it's exclusively a giant bug movie, but it's a giant bug, and it's in a movie. So I can't say no to that. SBC says, Tarantula, the biggest of them B movies. Yes, yes. Tarantula. Yeah, there were some of the lists that I was looking up where they just wanted to talk about bugs in horror movies and insects. So, like, no, we want the giant bugs. I believe that was what was specifically asked for at the end of the show last week. Patty says, Mothra is a giant moth, so I think it qualifies. Yeah, I think so. Dee says, what about the Creepshow episode with all those roaches? Yeah, the ones that crawling out of the guy at the end, yeah. Who played the dad in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? Remember the wife's dad? So, can't think of his name. Oh, there's my baby. Ava Hoagie says, hello, I can't hear anything here, but I wanted to say hi from Erie. All right, baby, you enjoy, and we're glad that you stopped in to say hi and to send me some hearts there. Ava's on Facebook watching this, so SBC says, wind down, 'tis full of bugs. Oh, well then that sounds like our kind of movie tonight. Jason says, one iconic bug with Ashley Judd didn't deal with bugs. One iconic movie, Bug, with Ashley Judd didn't deal with bugs. I don't think I've seen that one. Patty says, giant deadly mantis is another one of my favorites. Bonin says, Tarantula, Earth versus Spider, Deadly Mantis, Them, Black Scorpion, Beginning of the End, Monster that Challenged the World. Some of those are indeed on the list that I have anyways, but keep them coming. Stan says, good evening. The old bug movies were great. Need to see some old ones. Yes. And Ava says, yep, from Texas Horn. Ah, well, enjoy your dinner there. I assume that's sounds like a restaurant. Sounds like a nice place to visit. I'm trying to see what your profile picture is there. Oh, that's right. You got Bella, our cat, as your picture there. Stephanie says The Fly with Vincent Price. I think that's on the list as well. So, all right. So, I also want to take this time to say Sunday was May 4th. Sunday was Star Wars Day. I hope all of you had a fantastic Star Wars Day. All you nerds and geeks out there, all you lovers of sci-fi, I hope that you enjoyed the day. I don't know if you did anything. If you did, I didn't really do too much for that specifically, other than I worked on the haunted house. Went there with Chuck, and he. One second, just. All right. I had a T-shirt on, my Star Wars T-shirt, as I was building the haunt. I was representing. Joe exposes them burning giant ants with flamethrowers. Awesome when you're 10. Yes. Jason says another Bug movie, also called Bug, dealt with the giant cockroaches that were collectively smart, could spell, and could start fires. Ah, okay. I've not seen that one either. I have to say there, Jason. Sounds interesting. Giant cockroaches. Okay, that'd be creepy. Stephanie says I did. Oh, did you on Sunday? Also on Sunday, I want to give a shout out to the Vortex channel. It's a monster channel that play horror hosts all the time. So they were playing an episode of Chiller Night Theater on Sunday. They played Night Fright, so appreciate the Vortex playing an episode there of Chiller Night Theater. I thank you. Jack Shadow thanks you. And hopefully your viewers thank you as well. Hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, I guess so, huh? Yeah, that is not one that came to my mind, but now I absolutely can see that. Dee says, I wanted to watch the old school Star Wars movies for May 4th, but was outvoted. Oh, no. You say, these are the movies you want to watch. Use the old Jedi mind trick, Dee. Joe says, Starship Troopers. Like Patty says, LOL, gross. I love that. Stephanie says, my mom always wants a flamethrower. Ah, all right. Well, you better get your mom a flamethrower. Mother's Day is coming up this month, so just remember, mom needs to get what she wants. She's your mom. Get a flamethrower, Joe says. Yeah. Bugbuster, 1998. SBC says, Bugbuster, wow. Al says, hi, everyone, sorry I'm late. Ah, we just started, Al, so thanks for joining us. Talking, of course, the topic was, it's too bad John's not here yet. I think that John, if I remember right, it's hard for me to remember, but I think that he picked tonight's topic, giant insects. Of course, the most, the most notable, the one that pops into the minds of old Chiller fans like myself, and I'm sure many of you, is them. So I do have a list from IMDb of 10 classic giant bug movies. And I didn't get the posters up here, but I'm just going to go down the list here. We'll go down the list, and I'll be jumping back and forth to the comments. Number 1 on the list is Beginning of the End. Beginning of the End from 1957. Enterprising journalist Audrey Ames is determined to get the scoop on enormous grasshoppers that were accidentally created at the Illinois State Experimental Farm, and she endeavors to save Chicago despite a military cover-up. So I hope she did well on her endeavors there. Beginning of the End. I don't know if anybody has seen that one. I don't remember seeing that one. The Black Scorpion, that was mentioned already, also from 1957. Volcanic activities freeze giant scorpions from Earth who wreak havoc in a rural countryside and eventually threaten Mexico City. All right, now I'll pop back to the chats here. We watched Blade 2 instead, Dee said. Oh, okay. All right. Entertaining movie. I like the original Blade movies. I don't know. I don't think they've made more. I think there's been talk of more Blade movies, but it's no Star Wars though. John says it's Tuesday night. Do you have your bug traps ready? Because tonight is going to get buggy. This is Crozak the Grand, and this is Chiller Night Live. And here's your host, Bryan Hogue. Thank you, Crozak the Grand. And John's giving the shock screaming emoji there. Jason says slither, shivers, squirm. Great bug movies too. Jason says Empire of the Ants. Joan Collins. I remember that one. Jason says the best ant movie is Phase 4. Highly recommend. I haven't seen that one, or if I have, I don't remember. Some of these titles they may have been old, movies that I have seen on Chiller Theater growing up, but I something might jog my memory, but I saw a lot of those. Deborah, hey Deborah, thanks for joining us. Deborah's on Facebook. Good evening, Chiller Thrillers. Hey Deborah, thanks for joining us. Tonight we're going to be talking about giant insect horror movies. SBC says, I remember Beginning of the End. That was the one mentioned from 1957. Them is the best, Al says. Yes. I mean, sure, I agree. That's the one that just pops into my head. Because and then Joe apparently agrees with it. I knew I liked you, Al. He says, SBC says, audio and video out of sync. Is it? I don't know what I can do about that necessarily, but it says, hoping's all bug me tonight. That'll be a switch. Usually I'm the pest. LOL. A couple zingers there. Slid right in there from Bonehead. All right. 3 is The Deadly Mantis, also from 1957. There are quite a bit of them in the 50s. Of course, okay. 1945, the end of World War II, saw the detonation of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And at that moment, the world realized that there was a true horror. And it wasn't the Wolfman, it wasn't Dracula, it was science. Science has created a devastating monster, if you will, a terror, a horror unimaginable. And thus, came forth all these science fiction movies with everything was giant this and that. And of course, one of the favorite giants, topic of the movies was the giant insects. A lot of times they were, mutated by radiation or things like that. So, but it was indeed a time of the science fiction era exploded. Rightfully so. Like I said, that was the atomic bomb. Well, the Wolfman. We had a real terror at that point. So it gave something, gave the world something to be truly afraid of. So, and thus birthed all these these science fiction movies. The Spider is the next one, from 1958. Teenagers from a rural community and their high school science teacher join forces to battle a giant mutant spider. Also from 1958, The Fly, that was mentioned here in the list here. I think Patty might have mentioned that. A scientist has a horrific accident when he tries to use his newly invented teleportation device. All right. Of course, Vincent Price. And jump back to the comments here. Paul says, hey, Paul, thanks for joining us. Paul says, how are you all doing tonight, family? I know I'm doing well, and I hope everybody's doing well. Everyone really, sunk their teeth into tonight's topic. I think there was something very fun about watching these old giant insect movies from the 50s. Just that era of chiller movies was just a lot of fun. Stephanie's, and I do think it took you away from that overwhelming fear, because it was an uncertain time, still is, but I mean, especially back then, after the world had just witnessed, within the last 10, 15 years, the atomic bomb, and that truly was a sincere, valid threat. So I think that these movies were a way to maybe get a little message in there, slide the message in, but also a little escapism for folks. Stephanie says, I've seen the first two movies you mentioned on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Cool. John says, here's a bug movie for you from 1957, Monster from Green Hell. This movie stars Jim Davis. I remember him from playing the role of Jock Ewing from the series Dallas. Aha! Yes. Ava and I watched that last summer, and we watched it from like June or July all the way up until January. It was so fun binge watching Dallas. It's working again, SBC says. The audio and video, okay. Good. D says The Fly. Paul says, Manos is in the house. How are you feeling today? Ava, how is your hand? Let's see if Ava is on here. I'm not sure if she's seeing this right now, Paul, because she might be, she's out with her sister Anne, and I believe they're having dinner right now. So, but it says, the 50s was the era for big bug movies. I love them all, yes. The Fly, 1958 versus 1986. Which is best? Which is best? What do you guys think? Which is best, the 1958 or the 1986 version of The Fly? Patty says, Mant in the movie Matinee. Ooh. Bob says, hello everybody. Hey Bob, thanks for joining us. Bob sent me a hilarious video, by the way, after last week we had mentioned about the, it was kind of going around online, the viral, the 100 men versus one gorilla, who would win. And he sent me a really funny video of somebody, like, as if they were interviewing the guy and showing just this hilarious tape of the gorilla just annihilating the 100 opponents, and the dialogue was pretty humorous. Jason says, Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner. Al says, if not for World War II, we would never have such great 50s monster movies. That's, the glass is half full. You gotta think positive. SBC says, now more than ever, they will blow the world up sooner than later. I don't know. I hope not. Bonin says, I'm writing all these movies down you are mentioning. I can get some new monster bug movies to watch. Thanks, Chillin' Night Crew. Wow, this is this is incredible. I've got a ton. I'm going to try to keep up with these comments. The Swarm, great Killer Bee movie. I remember that one, Jason. Paul says, remember the giant spider in Gilligan's Island? No, I actually, that one does slip my mind. But that's funny. They had a giant spider, huh? That's actually kind of scary for Gilligan's Island. Jason says, Bonus, watch Phase 4, a more intelligent take on an ant horror film. Bob says, rewatch Dallas, time for Falcon Crest. Yeah, we had mentioned that one. Yeah, Falcon Crest, and remember that Dynasty, and we started, which one did, oh, we started Knots Landing. We got maybe one or two in there. I just wasn't quite as compelled to watch that one, but that was a spin-off, of course, from Dallas. Jason says, Dallas is fantastic. Yes. Paul says, please tell her Happy Mom Day. I will. Thank you. SBC says, I like both Fly movies. Yeah, they were both pretty good there. John says, let's not forget about the bees, because here's a triple threat of them. There's Killer Bees from 1974, The Deadly Bees from 1967, and from Irvin Allen, The Swarm from 1978. Wow, lots of bug movies. Bunny says, I've seen that, Jason. It's a creepy movie. Made me wonder, and I was kind of freaked out thinking about how that could actually maybe happen. Jason says, I'm not a fan of remakes, but I think Jeff Goldblum's version was better. Okay, there's an answer there for you, D, on the 2, which was better. Don't forget Godzilla, Paul says. Well, there was a mention of Mothra, because we're talking about giant bug movies. So, but yeah, Godzilla certainly was born out of the atomic age sci-fi movies. Deborah says 2 older ones, Them and Strange World of Planet X. Yes, put my Them poster back up there. Yeah, that was a classic. It really, really is. I remember sitting there watching that as a little kid, watching that on Chiller Theater, and just thinking that was so scary. Patty says, the giant spider was defeated by a normal-sized pigeon. It was a funny one. I did not see that one. Bonin says, I remember Spiga, and Kamacaris from Godzilla, Paul. All those big bugs. See, I wouldn't have remembered. Of course, Bonehead would know the Godzilla stuff. He is the Godzilla expert, certainly. Yeah. John says, Killer Bees. I'm surprised that we haven't got any Asian Killer Hornets or Asian Murder Hornets movies yet. Murder Hornets are. Yeah, remember that? Yeah. That topic just kind of went, came and went. Da-da-da. I'm glad. D says, in Dynasty, don't forget that one. Yeah. Dallas, Dynasty, Falcon's Crest, Knots Landing. They were all hitting the prime time soap operas. Brett says, hi, Brian. Hey, Brett, thanks for joining us. How are things in Cranberry? Hopefully well. SBC says, invasion of the bee girls. That reminds me of the Wasp Woman. That one. Wow, we had that on Chiller Night Theater. We did the Wasp Woman anyways. Paul says, Night of the Living Dead was a monster movie from a satellite mishap. Yeah. It orbited Venus or something like that and came back and caused everyone to get back up that had recently died. But it says, The Savage Bees is yet another Killer Bee movie. It's got Ben Johnson, Michael Parks, and Gretchen Corbett. Really? Huh. I've not seen that one. Patty says, I still shudder at the thought of a giant maggot in Goldblum's fly. Yeah, pretty gross, huh? D says, not a classic. What about Arachnophobia, 1990? I remember that one. I went to the theater. I remember going to the theater to see that one. I enjoyed that one. Spaced Invaders, SBC says, from 1990. Bona says, yes, Bona definitely has a Godzilla obsession. Love the big G. Yeah. Bob says, what happened to the flying spider scare? They were supposed to be dropping from the sky. Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. That, and like we had mentioned the murder hornets and all that. Yeah, I don't know. We always get this kind of drudge up a fear and never. I'm okay with that one not really landing. Alien, I think they count as giant bugs, SBC says. Yeah, I'm sure. Space Invaders, no giant bugs, but it does have giant beans. Bonin says you also have Mothra and Meganulon. Okay, now I can't pronounce that last name. The second one, I mean. Mothra. But we all know Mothra. Oh, yes, from Godzilla series. John says Rodan has its giant bugs in the first part of the movie attacking miners in a coal mining town. Interesting. Paul says, what about Megalodon? I don't know. Was that a giant bug? Megalodon? I'm trying to remember which one he was. Brad says, hello, I'm feeling happy. But not as happy as when we got to do the Brad and the plugging when 1931 horror films Dracula and Frankenstein coming to the public domain in January of 2027. Yes, that is coming. It'll be here just like that. Although we don't want to wish our life and time away, but certainly we will be looking forward to Dracula and Frankenstein coming to the public domain. Jeff says, hi, Brian. Greetings from Texas. Hey, Jeff, thanks for joining us. Well, I hope all is well in Texas, and I appreciate you being here tonight. SBC says, big-ass spider, cheap modern CGI movie. Yeah, I remember that one coming out, I think in the 90s, the late 90s or something. Hey, Paul, SBC, and the Chiller Gals, Petsavan, D, and Miss Stephanie Press. Bonin says, Jason says, Alien and Aliens, great horror bug movies. Yeah, I mean, sure. If they kind of fall into that category, right? Xeno, whatever they were called, the alien. Let me see, the giant shark movie. Paul says, a giant shark movie. We'll have to do one on that one. The giant sharks. To me. Although, I mean, I was going to say, yeah, the giant sharks certainly would be terrifying. But as far as on land, though, I guess, I mean, initially my thought is, oh, I'd be way more afraid of a giant shark. But I guess on land, if you think about the proportionate speed and strength of a spider, or a spider, well, an arachnophobe, but or a giant ant, an insect, fly, kind of scary. Brad says, nice t-shirt, Brian. Thank you. Speaking of your Dracula and Frankenstein, the classics, the great classics, I might add. Appreciate that. John says, Godzilla versus Megalon. Yes, Megalon is a giant cockroach-sized monster with drill hands. You know, that reminds me of the old Ultraman series. Remember that? Ultraman and all those crazy creatures that he fought. PBR's Street Gangs. Give me the wave. I will wave back in turn. Thanks for joining us, PBR. Brian says, the Black Scorpion. The Black Scorpion. Let me, as soon as I get caught up on the comments, because there's a lot of comments here, I'll continue with this this list, which you guys have probably already mentioned all of these on here. Like the Black Scorpion, I think we yep, Black Scorpion from 1957. We've mentioned that one. Yeah. Kevin says, good evening, all. Good evening, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Bonus says, I think we all know that they're coming to public domain. I don't think we need to hear that every week. Oh, but if you are looking forward to it, it'll help me remember. Jason says, in search of with Leonard Nimoy had a killer bee episode. Good, but very dated. Ah, I used to love In Search of. PBR says, isn't there a movie about lightning strikes the ground and makes crazy mutant worms? Oh my gosh, I don't know, but that wouldn't surprise me. Bob says, I always liked the 1930s werewolf movie. Amazing special effects for the time. Yeah, the one that stands out from 1935, I believe it was, Werewolf of London, starring Henry Hall as the werewolf of London. And it was kind of a different one, but it was kind of neat because you, like Bob was saying, mentioned the special effects of the 30s werewolf movie. It's kind of a neat scene where you see him walking and doing his transformation scene as he's walking. And he might go behind a pillar or something like that as he's walking along. Now that werewolf was a little more debonair than Lon Chaney Jr.'s werewolf. A little bit more on the savage side, but he still wore his cap, his scarf, and his coat. The werewolf from Werewolf of London with Henry Hall. SBC says, "Hey SBC, I didn't forget about you." SBC says, "Well, Paul, at least you didn't mention Manos, LOL." I think he already did. Jason says, "Squirm, Electric Worms, great movie." Is that the one? Is that the one you were talking about with PBR about the lightning striking the ground? The monster from Green Hell, Brian says. I think that was also mentioned. Yeah, very cool. Return of the Fly, 1959. That's another one. Philip Delambre, I don't know how to pronounce that. The now adult son of the Fly does some transportation experimentation of his own. So that was the sequel to The Fly from 1958, and then they turned right around with the sequel the very next year with Return of the Fly. Now this one was brought up several times. Tarantula from 1955. Tarantula, remember that one? Giant spider. Spider escapes from an isolated Arizona desert laboratory experimenting in gigantism and grows to tremendous size as it wreaks havoc on the local inhabitants. Poor inhabitants. And of course, I just took the picture now. Them! From 1954, Them. The earliest atomic tests in New Mexico caused common ants to mutate into giant man-eating monsters that threaten civilization. Right what we were talking about. The one thing that we all love about that time is of course, the warning. There was such that the warning of the atomic technologies that we had at that time. So making monsters and terror. Mothra. Number 9 is Mothra. Okay, there we go. 1961. I forgot about that. I thought I was thinking of Mothra on the Godzilla movie, but here we go. Mothra in its own movie, right? An expedition to Infant Island uncovers the native tribe and the twin tiny fairy priestesses of a mythical deity who sets out to rescue the pair after they are kidnapped by a greedy businessman. Okay, I'm sure you guys all have to remember the little tiny fairy princesses, or priestesses, it says. Yeah, I certainly remember those. And, okay, here we go. Number 10. Mothra versus Godzilla. They did put that in there. Somebody's asking about, what about this one? All right, well, it's on the list. It's on the IMDb list of top 10 giant, or 10 classic giant bug movies. So this is number 10. Mothra versus Godzilla, 1964, when greedy tycoons refused to return Mothra's egg to the people of Infant Island. They must decide if they're willing to answer Japan's own pleas for help when Godzilla arises near Nagoya. All right. It had to happen, and Mothra's been turning up in Godzilla films ever since, although the solo flights in the 1990s were disappointing, according to who's ever writing this little caption here. So there you have it. There are the top 10 classic giant bug movies from IMDb. So I was looking for Scream Rant, but they had just kind of across the board horror movies with insects, not giants specifically. So John says, Eight-Legged Freaks, another great movie about a swarm of killer spiders. Ah, yeah. Earth versus the Spider, Al says. SBC says, I think Superfly doesn't count, LOL. Oh man, I am actually going backwards up through here because there's so many. Tremors, 1990, SBC says. Paul, off topic, saw the trailer for Jaws 5 on YouTube. Richard Dreyfuss is in it. What? Really? Is that real? Is it a fan made? Or are they really making a Jaws 5? Really? Jaws 5? Wow. Patty says, Roger Corman's Black Scorpion is a superhero. Okay. Not quite the Black Scorpion that they were talking about, but I don't think. Is it? Wait a minute. Maybe so. Let's see. Oh, no. This is Edward Ludwig. Volcanic Activities Freeze from 1957. Okay. Black Scorpion is the superhero. PBR says, yes, Squirm is the name. Lightning hits the ground and makes mutant worms. Interesting. The beginning of the end, Brian says. Cool. Paul says, don't forget about the Bat with Bela Lugosi. The Bat. There was the Vampire Bat and the Devil Bat. The Devil Bat had Bela Lugosi in it. Yeah. And then Vampire Bat. That was another one. That was an earlier movie that had, I think it was before the Devil Bat, but it had Dwight Frye. Now, some of you may remember Dwight Frye from Frankenstein, playing Fritz, Dr. Frankenstein's little Igor-like assistant. And Lionel Atwill, I think he was in that movie as well. I might have to recheck the credits on that one, but for some reason his name's coming up in my head. PBR says, Nest is a good movie. The movie poster was a bit racy, but good movie. I don't think I saw that one, Nest. Earth vs. Fire. Okay, now I think I'm getting down to where we're catching up. Patty says, the lightning doesn't make mutant worms, but causes them to escape the ground and engulf a town en masse. It was supposedly based on an actual event. What? Really? That's crazy. Jason says, Damnation Alley, TV movie with Jan Michael Vincent and George Peppard, had a really scary cockroach scene. Oh? I've heard of the name of the title there sounds familiar. I miss those TV movies. Those were really cool. The CBS Movie of the Week, or whatever it was. They had some good ones back in the day. I used to always enjoy those. Stephanie says, actually, Pat, there are two titles called Black Scorpion. One is of the superheroes. The other is a black and white movie. Right, I think, that's where, I think we were talking about that one from 1957. About the bug one anyways, not the Roger Corman superhero. But yeah, Bonehead says, Paul, I gotta watch the trailer for that. Jaws is a classic. I'm dying to see that. I just hope it's better than Jaws 4: The Revenge. I know, and then Patty says, I know the two. I was just telling the others, but thanks. Right. Let's see. Brian says, would the monster challenged the world qualify? I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of if there was a giant bug in there or not, but I cannot say yes or no to that. I'm never, or actually, I'm not really ever going to turn a movie down, you know, because if you guys are bringing it up, you know, we'll fit the square peg into the round hole somehow. Um, Jason says there are a lot of superhero bugs: Blue Beetle, Spider-Man, Handman, the Wasp, Yellow Jacket, the Tick. The Tick. I used to like the Tick. Jason says, SBC, the truck was awesome. Oh, from Damnation Alley. I want such a truck, SBC says. Max says, hey, Max, thanks for joining us. Hell yeah, the Black Scorpion tops my list of favorite bugs. Cool, cool, cool. Paul says, mysterious island of beautiful women. What? Oh, I'm going too far back to see the one before that. Mysterious Island. It was that the title of the movie? Or is that another Gilligan's Island episode? But it says Spiders 1 and 2 from the 90s, I think, were pretty good movies. But it's SBC says, but with the films that they make today, let's just hope that the sharks don't fly. Yeah, or have 3 heads or something. Paul says they're coming out because of 50-year anniversary. Is that right? Wow. Jaws 5. Okay. Yeah, but it says SBC. I watched some of those Sharknado movies, LOL. The Devil Bat, Paul says. Yeah, that's the one with Bela Lugosi. Yes. Remember that? He had the cologne, the aftershave, and if you put that on, he'd give it as a gift to the people he intended to kill. Then he scientifically mutated these bats to the size of just a large size and let them out, and they would attack who's ever wearing that. Pretty good movie. Not a big fan of Sharknado sequels, or not a big fan. Oh, the Sharknado sequels, aren't you, Paul? Stephanie says. Max says arsonist fireflies. What is that? Is that a movie? Is that the name of the movie? Relic 1997, SBC says. I saw that one. I remember that one. PBR says there is an episode of X-Files about worms that get inside people and control them. Oh yeah? I used to really love that show. I can't remember that specific episode though. John says, let's not forget about Arachnophobia 1990. Yeah, somebody had mentioned that. Might have been D, I think. With John Goodman and the campy but still scary Kingdom of the Spiders, starring William Shatner. Right. Yes. Good stuff. Bonus says Killdozer was an ABC movie of the week from 1974. Yes, I remember. I miss the X-Files, SBC says. Horror of Spider Island, Paul says. Now that's one we can play for Chiller Night Theater one of these times, because that is public domain. Let's see. Patty says, wasn't there a movie called The Navy versus the Spiders? I don't know. That could very well have been. PBR says, anyone mention the giant mantis? It might have been, but I couldn't tell you for sure. But all right, we'll take that on the list. The giant mantis? Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that I'm trying to remember. I think that was mentioned though. The giant mantis. That's right. That would be pretty scary. Seems like they'd just like chew your head off or something. Giant deadly mantis. Yep, Patty says. Starship Troopers. Yeah, that was brought up a few times there, Brian. Yep, exactly. John says the live-action version of The Tick starring Patrick Warburton, which was pitch perfect as The Tick. Yes, it was. That's the show I enjoyed. But it says thanks again to everyone in the Chiller Night crew for giving me a bunch of new bug movies to watch. You watch them, then you start seeing bugs everywhere, and it creeps you out. What fun! Yeah. Brad says, coming soon to the public domain in January of 2026, the 1931 horror film Alron. I remember this laugh from last week, but I don't remember if I'm saying it right. Did you know that it's the same actress who played Metropolis? You once told me of how they made C-3PO in Star Wars. Interesting. I didn't realize it was the same actress. I don't know the actors and actresses from a lot of those old silent ones, but yeah, the kind of the concept for C-3PO was, well, when you look at the old Ralph McQuire illustrations of the old early Star Wars conceptual drawings, it was actually a female based off of the Metropolis robot. Let's see, Paul says, please bring back Chiller Night Theater, family. I have to go. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right, Paul, thank you for joining us tonight. And hopefully we've given you a long list of bug movies if you are in the mood to watch some giant bug movies. Jason says, we need a shameless plug, Brian. We haven't had one yet. That's right. Oh my gosh. And it is almost 9 o'clock. I'm just keeping up with the comments here. Okay, I'll do that in just a second. Thank you, Jason. Though, yes. Bonus says, I've heard of Navy versus the Night Monsters. I have not heard of that. Pennsylvania. Bonus says, Pennsylvania. I love the Deadly Mantis. I'll watch the original movie and then I watched the Mystery Science Theater 3000 with Mike and the Bots. Paul says, family, I have to go. See you next week. Same bat time, same back channel. I love you guys. Be safe out there. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. All right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Brian says, The Mist. Oh, The Mist. Yeah, The Mist. That was a good one. Disturbing ending. One of the most disturbing endings in a horror movie. But, yeah, that's right. The military opens up that dimensional portal. All these big bugs come in. That's a good one. I hadn't even thought of that one. Jason says, District 9, good sci-fi bug movie. The main character slowly turns into a bug. Cool, cool, cool. John says, now let's remember those who were tasked to kill the great insect threat and the greatest weapon of all, fire. Fun fact, Clint Eastwood was in the Air Force squadron leader who killed the tarantula with a napalm strike. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Oh, Clint Eastwood in this, the old, I mean, he was in Revenge of the Creature? Or The Creature Walks Among Us. I'm trying to remember which one of those. It was the second one, the sequel to The Creature from Black Lagoon. I think that was his very first part. That's cool. Air Force Squadron Leader. Raymond says, Brian, better late than never. Hey, Raymond, thanks for joining us. Yes. Bonus says, this is definitely the most fun I've ever had being bugged. Thank you. All right. Patty says, anyone remember the X-Files episode with the killer cockroaches? I still remember fondly that scene with Gillian calmly munching a malt ball. Empty store, they thought they were roaches. Munching a malt ball in an empty store, they thought they were roaches. Oh, I don't remember that episode. The misending was shocking. Jason says, yeah, it was horrible. Boda says, you missed a good time tonight, Raymond. We talked about bug movies. It doesn't take much to amuse Bonehead, LOL. Jason says, is Cloverfield a bug movie? It did have bugs that fell off of it in a few scenes. I don't know, but that's another, that was a good one. I enjoyed that one. I went to the theater and saw that one. Very cool. Well, hey, speaking of these old chillers, the old chiller movies from yesteryear, went down a list of the giant bug movies, some of them anyways. So, but don't forget, Chiller Night Theater episodes, you can watch that every Saturday night on Stream TV at streammedia.tv. Streammedia.tv. You can enjoy these classic and not so classic chiller movies from the golden era of movies, golden silver age, golden age. But hosted by Jack Shadow, and sometimes I've stepped in there in the later part of the show's run to show these chiller movies. But catch all those at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. They'll be playing at least 4. They play 4 back to back every Saturday night. So, Brad says, I thought it was when the guy shot in the head in the 1968 film Night of the Living Dead was a disturbing and shocking ending. Yeah, that was something that you know, I don't think a lot of people were expecting. You know, that was one of those shocking endings. Yeah, and then The Mist. Speaking of getting shot in the head, what a what a movie. Stephanie says, so what's next week's topic? I don't know. That was a... Oh, did anybody watch The Mist? Made me think of The Walking Dead, because you had a few of the Walking Dead, the early Walking Dead. Well, Carol, the lady who played Melissa Bride, I think. Carol was in it. The guy who played Dale. Remember Dale from the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead? But Sunday night was the premiere of Dead City, Season 2, Episode 1, with Negan and Maggie in it. So, I enjoy that. I posted, you know, about, oh, Ava and I are getting ready to watch that, and or somebody had to comment that they don't like that show, and it should have been canceled years ago. It's like, okay, to each their own. You know, Ava and I still enjoy it, but, you know, we look forward to that. That's our Sunday night thing. We always like it when it's on. Fear the Walking Dead, you know. The Walking Dead toward the later years was really just... yeah, it was getting kind of hard to watch, but we still did it. We were loyal. Raymond says, remember the 50s expression, you bug me and don't bug me. I still hear that. Patty says, Friday the 13th movies for Tuesday the 13th. Is that right? No, is that... Heck yeah, all right, let's do that. Good one. Friday the 13th. We'll be covering Friday the 13th movies for Tuesday the 13th. I like that. PBR says, Creepshow had a part about cockroaches. Yeah, that was about the guy who was all paranoid about germs and always spraying stuff. And The Mist, a big fat nope, D says. Yeah, it was, I love the movie. It was a good movie. But man, that ending, I just was like, what? Raymond says, Jason, Cloverfield was a good movie. I recorded it. SBC says, the 80s remake of Night of the Living Dead has a completely different ending. Yeah, 1990. Tom Savini directed that at the request of the man himself, George Romero. And it, yeah, had some changes in it. Didn't want to be exact. And in my opinion, it's a very, very fun movie to watch. I very much enjoy the remake of Night of the Living Dead. PBR says, anyone catch the first episode of the Eat or Not? I remember you bringing that up, but I still don't know if I'm saying it right. So good, he says. I did not see that. Shaun of the Dead, Patty says, that was a good one. Very, very entertaining movie. John says, this episode is sponsored by the Mobile Infantry of Starship Troopers and by Orkin. This episode of Chiller Night is one for the books. This is Crozak to Graham reminding you that insects are just as afraid of you as you are of them. Or are they? Until next week, stay chilled and keep thrilled. Yes, now next week, Patty brought up about Jason, or about Friday 13th for Tuesday the 13th. I think that's a really good idea. So, yeah, more pictures of Jason here. Aha, the Jason, which are available at Chiller Night Store at the Cranberry Mall in Venango County. That's right, Chiller Night. Come on out for all your horror and sci-fi needs. Well, a few of them anyways. At the Cranberry Mall, once again, emphasizing in Venango County, Pennsylvania. So, and if you like escape rooms, check out the Witching Hour and Zombie Outbreak, both 1-hour escape rooms. If you're interested in booking either one of those, you can call 814-209-8214, or you can book online at chillernight.com. So there you have it. There was my shameless plug. Let's see. John's waving goodbye. D says, what about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, the Roach Motel scene? Oh, yeah. Shaun of the Dead, hilarious movie, Bonin says. Met Simon at a sneak preview of that movie. Is that right? Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm hearing an echo. Are you guys hearing an echo? Let's see. Get caught up here. Speaking of bugs, I once woke up and there was a fat cockroach sitting next to me on the nightstand, staring me in the eyes, SBC says. Oh, what a thing to wake up to. Patty says, stay safe all. Yes. Al says, good night, everyone. Good night. Stephanie says, take care, y'all. See you next week. Jason says, great episode tonight. Kept my mind off of reality for an hour. Thank you, as always, Brian, for providing this outlet to us once a week. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And that's what we do. We keep it a lighthearted, fun hour, just talking about stuff that we all just are having fun with. You know, these old chiller movies. And it's pretty much what it is, you know. Get your mind off of everything else. Get your mind off all that serious stuff. Come here and have a good time. Bonehead says, well, we officially have a topic for next week. Now, see if Bonehead will remember that. I hope I remember that. I think I will. 13th, that's easy. Patty says, SBC, I woke up to a mantis sitting on my pillow next to me. Oh my gosh, what the heck, you people? You need to set little traps or something around your bed. Keep these things out of your bed. Deborah says, night, chiller thrillers. Good night, Deborah. Thanks for joining us. Brian says, the Incredible Shrinking Man. It's not a bug movie, but we'll throw it in the list anyways if you want. The old chillers. It was an old chiller. Very, Bonin says, thank yous each and everyone in the Chiller Night crew for another great show. SBC says, good night, everyone. And when you go to bed tonight to dream of Manos, don't let the bed bugs bite you. Oh, that was a good little send-off there. Speaking of bugs, later Gators, Raymond says. Bonehead says, best chat room on YouTube. Thanks, Chiller Night crew. Thank you, Bonehead, very much. D says, good night, everyone. See you next Tuesday. Jason! All right, it is 9 o'clock, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me and each other for another night of Chiller Night Live. Have a good night. Have a good Chiller Night. We'll see you next week when we'll talk about